Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. We are doing a live podcast recording right now in front of a packed house, I would say.
Oh, my goodness. Hey, everyone at the back, give us a cheer.
It's so packed you can barely hear them.
It's one of those ones where it becomes like a dull noise, like,
Yeah, we'll just put the fake noise in, maybe.
Yeah, don't worry. Mike, can you get that on the editing list, please? Fake noise. Thank you.
So, for those of you who don't know, we are the Women's Soccer Show. We are a women's soccer podcast. We release episodes weekly. We cover the game, and that means the game itself and everything in and around the game, topics, social issues, so on and so forth. So, for our live audience, we're going to do a quick introduction, and then we're going to jump into the episode. We're going to talk about the games, and we're going to talk about issues around the game, because that's what we really are all here for at the Equality Summit.
Yep, and just to, if anybody's not familiar with us, it is normally just me and Sarah, but we've brought back our OG presenter, Helen, who left us for a job at the BBC. That's local BBC, to clarify.
But
you guys wind me up. So should we jump into the action and talk about my favourite topic, which at the moment is England. It isn't usually, but it is at the moment. So obviously, everyone knows what the outcome was. England versus Sweden, semi-final of the Euros. I'm still smiling. I saw a post yesterday that covered England's last 4 tournaments, and it made me reminisce. So in Canada, we got knocked out in the semi-final. I cried at 2 o'clock in the morning in my bedroom on my own. 2017, I was over in the Netherlands. I watched England get knocked out in the semi-final. I cried, but in front of my sisters this time, which was great. And then in 2019, it was my wedding day. England got knocked out by the USA in the semi-final. Again, you're starting to see the rhythm here. And then on Tuesday, semi-final.
Well, can I also add, though, in the Olympics, you got knocked out.
Oh, yeah.
You cried that day, too.
Yeah, I cried that day, too.
That was on the podcast with me, though.
That one was on air. And then, of course, semi-final. And I thought, here we go again. And England beat Sweden 4-0 to make it to their first major final since 2009. Can we get a whoop-whoop? So, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I've been converted, I kind of have to say. It was special, and I know this is going to sound like a very U.S. thing to say, but the only way I can kind of equate it is it feels as special here as it felt in the U.S. 2019. Like, kind of when you know something really, that energy is brewing and something very special is happening, and it feels like everybody's kind of checked into that. That's really how it feels. And I stayed and I danced in that stadium for 30 minutes afterwards.
Ali, of course, you are an England fan, and you've been following these England players across the WSL. Yeah. How did it feel after years of disappointment to make it to our first major final?
I'm still stressed. All that semi-final for me is stress.
What I've really learned is that you all are a negative bunch. You are all very pessimistic. Nobody wants to talk about the final. Nobody wants to say you're going to win. Nobody wants to say that it looks good. Nothing.
We waited until 4-0 before we sang It's Coming Home. We're that superstitious.
I literally did. I wouldn't sing it until the final whistle. I think 30 seconds before the final whistle. Quick sort of caveat on that. I remember the referee they held up the sign to say 3 minutes of added time. And I was like, I think we're going to win. I think we're going to win. It's
only think.
And so I started a rendition of, in Newcastle, you sing, tell me ma, I won't be home for tea. I'm going to Wembly. Tell me ma. Of course, Jill Scott tweeted that as well. But everybody around me was like, oh yeah, let's start singing that. K Sarah. I was like, bloody hell, you tell we're not in the Northeast anymore. What's this K Sarah? Can we have a vote? Put your hands up if it's K Sarah. Oh my goodness
anything
sake.
South of
Tell me ma, guys.
I've
Come on, learn the real version.
absolutely no idea what's going on right now. None of our US listeners do either.
Nobody calls their ma, unless you're in the Northeast. So.
That doesn't sound like words to me, to be honest. I've recently learned the 3 lions. Ali was saying it, and I was like, it doesn't sound like English to me. I'm not entirely sure. But I've learned it now.
I want you singing it on
in
Sunday.
Newcastle, it's just east of Sheffield, as you were telling me.
Yeah, we were working on geography on Tuesday. So first half, I didn't feel too positive, but as you said, I'm the most pessimistic England fan going. I don't think that it was as clear-cut as it maybe looked towards the end. What did you make of the first 30, 40 minutes?
Yeah, I think Magda Eriksson had a great interview, if anybody's seen it, after the game, and pretty much said it perfectly that Sweden really had the momentum in the first 10, 15, maybe even 20 minutes, to be honest. Obviously, Mary Earps had that fantastic save right at the beginning, and that was within the first 2 minutes. And I really do think that if that had gone in, obviously, that would have changed the momentum. But, 4-0 is not indicative of that game that Sweden played. It's indicative of the last 20 minutes of the game, I would say. Feel bad for them. Mag Derrickson really spoke beautifully on that, and really just spoke to the fact that, this game is all about momentum, and that's exactly what happened. And good on England for being able to really stick it out. That's how you win tournaments, is sticking it out, finding the momentum, and that's really what happened.
And a lot of people have been talking about England gaining momentum through this tournament and gaining momentum through games, specifically, I think, probably throwback to the Spain game before, where, again, first 50, 60 minutes, I think overall we probably didn't deserve the win, but we just found a way. Would you say that would be a fair analysis of the Sweden game?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, the first 25, 30 minutes, I was going, we're going home. It's the semi-final curse again. We're going home. It's done. And then we got the first Beth Mead goal. And again, the pessimist in me was like, that's only 1-0, though, innit? Dangerous score, that. Dangerous score. But then second half, we came out absolute guns blazing. And then that's when I was like, I might actually start believing now.
It's been said a million times, but I'll say it again. In Serena Wagman, we all trust.
Exactly.
I've heard her say Wagman weird. Wigman.
We'll go with
it.
it.
No, go for it.
I actually did an interview yesterday I didn't actually realise I was going on
the BBC
GB
local?
News. No, I didn't.
I was going to say, I totally slated you for this. I was like, taking any media opportunity.
I really want to caveat this.
I forgot to mention in my bio, I also do interviews with the BBC.
Yeah, same.
So I got a no caller ID call at about 12 o'clock. And basically what happens at the moment is it will be like, hey, it's Sam from the BBC. And I go, all right, okay, I assume it's just a local. And then I find out when I get on who I'm talking to. So I get one, they say, oh, it's for, and I thought they said BBC News. And I was like, I've just been on BBC News, okay. So can you come on at 4 o'clock? I said, no problem. So they put it in my diary, and I didn't even really read it because I was like on with my day. And then I go on at 4 o'clock, and it wasn't until it came up. I thought it was on Fox News at first. I thought, oh, crap. And then I looked at the symbol in the corner. I was like, oh, no, I'm live on GB News.
Which is worse.
How did this happen? For anyone that doesn't know, kind of really right-wing news. And the opening thing, they're trying to make me slate men's Premier League players. So I was already in this this place where I'm like, no, I don't want to slate men's Premier League players. They work really hard. What's happening? Pampered, pristine Premier League players. I was like, oh my God. And then the presenter said, who do you want to play on Sunday? And this was before the game had happened. I said, I'd rather play France. And he said, do you not want to play Germany? What with your coach, Serena, being from Germany? I thought, oh, here we go. And I was like, yeah, Serena, of course. Dutch legend, Netherlands manager, played for the Netherlands, has a statue in the Netherlands dedicated to her. So, of course, yeah, really, really trusting in Serena Wiegman. And his face dropped and he went, thank you, Helen Hardy. And I got cut off. And I was like, mic drop. I was not going to tell my dad that I went on, but I went, Dad, quickly go on GB News, rewind. I absolutely had that presenter.
That's wonderful.
Classic moment.
That's just the audience clapping, don't worry.
So, yeah, we go into the game. The second goal goes in. Lucy Bronze, it goes to VAR. At this point, are you calming yourself? Are you thinking, it's coming home?
No. It's the honest answer, no, because I was like, it's VAR. It's going to be called off, isn't it? Because that's what happens in Sweden games. The goals get called off, according to Zlani. I don't think I started to really believe until that gorgeous backhill kick from Russo. Once that happened, then I was like, all right, yeah, might just be going home.
Let's take a moment for Russo. Just a moment's silence, please, while we all treasure Alessia Russo. Thank you. Thank you. That was it. So we obviously go on to win 4-0 in the game. One thing that I think really stands out for me, we talk about the depth in the England squad, but I think on the other side, it's not just depth, it's real youth, it's a real future for this England squad, regardless of what happens on Sunday. We're bringing on these incredibly young players that are in their early 20s, some in their teens, to come on for England. The confidence that they're showing in an England shirt is like nothing I think I've ever seen before from an England team in my entire lifetime. Is the future bright, Ali? Can we be ranked number 1 in the world? Ignore this USA fan in the middle.
Seeing the state of the US at the moment? Absolutely.
And Sarah? Say it. We're better than you.
No. At this exact moment, Absolutely, yes. Like the quality of the Euros this year, and we were saying this before the tournament, this was going to be some of the best, if not the best, international soccer we had ever seen, because that's just how the game is going. And with these teams being so developed and leading up to this tournament, and frankly, where England is at in the cycle, if you will, if they've got these, not veterans, but these players who are really just in their prime, who've been around, but they're not quite, frankly, old yet. And then they're bringing up the new crop of players. This is, if you don't win now, it's going to be another however many years.
No.
I didn't say they were
remind
better
me.
than the U.S. The U.S. has a lot to do before the 2023 World Cup, that's for sure.
So obviously, US ranked number 1 in the world. Sweden are ranked number 2 in the world. I imagine after this tournament, and there's going to be a lot of questions and maybe not many answers. But what do you think went wrong for Sweden throughout this tournament?
I think my biggest thing was giving Aslani captaincy over Eriksson. Controversial, I'm aware, but she loses her head too much. Like, you watch her and she was getting so frustrated and aggravated and doing stupid little fouls that were pulling Sweden back. And there was no leadership. So that was their biggest problem. They didn't have a head figure.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I also think it's tactically, like, if anybody's watched Sweden, I think from the very first game, they play in the middle. There's nobody using the flanks, and so whether that's changing the formation or just simply learning how to use the width more, that's where they got beat on the outside with England, with Hempo and Mito and Bronze and Daly. And so I really think it's changing those tactics and the captaincy.
So if you look at the two teams, for me, I think there's an element of real bravery around this England management that we haven't really seen as England fans for a long time, men's or women's. So we're seeing a coach that's making really decisive moves during a 90-minute football match, and that's a really scary thing to do. So bringing on 20-year-olds when you're losing 1-0 in a quarter-final and you know you've got to go all the way this year, and if you don't do it, then everyone's going to ask questions, is possibly the bravest thing I think you can do as a manager. And Serena's got that in abundance. But I think on the other side, when you look at the Sweden team, for me, one of the most talented players at the moment in that Sweden team is Hannah Bennison, and Hannah is proving it both in Europe domestically and then now in the WSL domestically. And I think if she was maybe under a Serena Wiegman management, you might have seen her coming on earlier and playing more minutes and putting a little bit more on her shoulders. And saying, go out there and prove it, because I think there's one side of me which says, and we saw it with Jack Grealish in the Euros last year, where he's saying, I want to take a penalty, put me on penalties. And then there's the other side where you see another player like Saka, who maybe the pressure got too much. I think you've got, as a manager, look at that player and say, ignoring your age, can I put this trust and faith in you? I think Hannah Bennison is someone that I personally would if I was a Sweden manager. And we didn't necessarily see that happen.
I think that's a good point about managers, though, because we talk about how the importance, obviously, of coaches and the tactical decisions that they make. But I think what Serena Wiegman brings most, brings most to this England squad is a sense of trust that these players have in her, and that cannot be stated enough, the importance of that, to bring a team to the final, to bring them to the championship. You can have as much talent as you want, but if they're not trusting in the coach and trusting in the process and trusting that the decisions that they're making at that point in the game are the right ones, it'll kill everything.
So let's touch on the game that happened 24 hours later. You guys went to Milton Keynes. Tell me about the atmosphere, first of all.
That place. It's a weird place.
So
I know some of you agree with, thank you. Yeah, some of you agree with me there. There's a lot of roundabouts. I was like, can we just walk to the stadium? They're like, no, you can't walk on the roundabouts.
Quick history of Milton Keynes. It was probably one
I've
of the
heard
last
it.
cities built.
I've
so
heard it.
It's a bit of a strange one.
Mike, our editor, grew up there a little bit, so not to
offense,
disparage your
Mike.
hometown, Mike.
So with the atmosphere in the stadium, were you surprised at how much it was built up and how well the semi-final did in terms of audience and attendance and fandom? Was it impressive?
Can we tell the story about the fans behind us very quickly? So we had a group of teenage girls behind us that were trying to get the Mexican wave started. So we glared at them a lot, because that's what we do as British people. We don't say anything, we glare at them. And then they started chanting, I believe we can win. And so I went, oh my God, they're American. The internal shame.
It was a shameful moment for me.
Sarah's time to step in.
Yeah, cute little girls in front of us, cute little English girls turned around and they just shouted at them like, shut up!
Shut up. Great impression. So was the atmosphere decent? Was it well built up? The first half was quite cagey, so I imagine people were kind of maybe finding it difficult to get into the swing of it.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. It was a bit of a boring match. Like, we're just going to call it what it is. A damp squib, as we say on the podcast.
Damp squib.
But, I mean, the energy in the stadium was fantastic. I think we were a little worried, obviously, with the rail strikes that people wouldn't care as much, people wouldn't come. But it really goes to show just how much people are invested in this tournament, and it was a fantastic atmosphere, a packed house, and the same type of women's football fans you're really seeing, where everybody's there at the Germany fan bus, getting the Germany flag, and now they're in the stands just waving the Germany flag. It was amazing atmosphere for a semifinal. Absolutely, people were really into the game.
And I think that France are really getting behind their women's team. I think there's been quite a lot of underfunding, and I think we all probably know some of the issues inside the France camp. But did you feel like the France fans were out there in force, or did you feel like it was mainly Germany fans?
Germany.
Really?
Germany had the monopoly 100%. Like, we were surrounded by them, and there was like 2 French fans in front of us, and that was it. Like, they had their corner, I think, France, but Germany were the ones that were most vocal, shall we say.
So potentially made all the difference. But I think a person that maybe we're all probably the first name that's on everyone's lips when we're talking about making the difference is that girl, Alex Pop. What do we make of her?
Oh, I mean, to come in, her role originally in this tournament, as we all know, was supposed to be that sub that comes in off the bench in, the 60th, 70th minute to put a goal away. And the performance that she's been able to put together, I think she's most known, obviously, for being able to put the ball away in the back of the net with her head. But as a women's soccer fan, as a women's soccer analyst, what she brings to this Germany squad is everything she brings off of the ball. And I don't just mean, obviously, her leadership. The runs that she makes off the ball have completely changed the way the Germany team move the ball around the field and are able to create spaces. In that France game, they were struggling quite a bit. And for her to have that goal again after working so hard this tournament, I mean, yeah. Beth Mead or Alexandra Pop, do you think?
I was getting annoyed because she's got too close to the golden boot. That's rightly Beth Mead's.
It all comes down to Sunday.
I know, that's what's so exciting about it. It all comes down to Sunday.
Speaking of, should we talk final and predictions?
Let's do it. So I'm not starting, by the way. Okay, I'll start. England are going to win.
Should we go down the line? Is there any?
Do it, yeah.
Go for it. Scoreline.
The pessimist in me wants to say that it's going to be tight, but I really do believe that England have got what it takes and the confidence in the youth in this England squad. I think we're going to see a 2-0 win.
Yeah, the contrarian in me really wants to say Germany, also because I do absolutely love how they play. I'm saying penalties.
Why would you do that?
And I think it's going to be that beautiful moment for England when penalties finally go your way.
It's not.
And you can all blame me if that happens and it doesn't go your way. It's because I jinxed it up here. But I really do think it's going to be a special day for England. I think it'll go to penalties and they'll take it.
I'm going to say regular time 2-1 England.
Right, okay, so I want to do a shout out from the audience.
Yes,
I just want, not the score, because that will just sound really crazy. So we'll hold our mics out, and I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, and then you're all going to say who is going to win the Euros on Sunday.
Nobody's allowed to be mean to the person who says Germany.
You are. 3, 2, 1. Obs.
I heard a Germany in there.
Did you?
No.
Who said Germany?
They're not going to show themselves.
Have you checked out Total Football Analysis yet? TotalFootballAnalysis.com provides researched analysis on loads of football games, including women's football. Want to know why Miedemar scores so many goals? Do you want to explore how City have turned it around this season? Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and sign up to learn more about the beautiful game. We have a special discount for listeners of the Women's Soccer Show. At checkout, type WOSO10 to get a full year for €10. That's €40 off the yearly subscription. Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and type WOSO10 at checkout.
So we wanted to go on and talk about grassroots media. For me personally, I think the growth of the women's game, a huge proportion of that, and I'd even go as far as saying bigger than the mainstream media, has been down to the grassroots movement. There are so many names that I could mention that have been in this game for such a long time. People like Jen O'Neill, She Kicks, who've been doing this for decades. People that have been doing podcasts long before it was popular to do podcasts about the women's game. And what we're starting to see now is this kind of curve into amazing shows and amazing pieces of media, which are being brought about by people like Jill Scott, who's got this awesome podcast where she talks to elite players from the game. We've got podcasts coming through BBC Sounds. We've got podcasts like The Players with Bex Smith, which was an amazing podcast talking to elite players. But I think that there is a huge space still for grassroots media, which we can't lose. And I worry and have concerns, especially around this Euros, that we may go towards losing that in the women's game as the game grows. So for me personally, I remember in 2019, I just started doing Two Girls. And again, out of context, that sounds really weird. I was only doing one girl at the time, just in case my wife listens to this. So I was doing a podcast called Two Girls. And that podcast gave us access to the media sections at places like Wembly for the Germany friendly in 2019. It gave us access to all of the WSL stadiums, all the WSL games, and any major friendly that we wanted to go to, because essentially they were gagging for people to cover the games. And you would go in and you would see The Guardian and Susie Rack, and you'd see people from the BBC, and you'd see various other mainstream media. At the Euros, Susie Rack told me that she struggled to get in to cover the game for The Guardian, that the BBC was struggling to get extra bodies in. I work BBC Locals. None of us were getting in for any of the games as media. And that's really deeply disconcerting, because part of the growth and the foundations of the women's game is about accessing it. And we are talking as a podcast about stuff that the BBC aren't talking about, because they can't necessarily say the things that we say. And we're putting things out there that that maybe aren't being put out there by the mainstream media. And so I think it's crucial that we keep grassroots media, and I guess there's a few different elements to it. Number one, how do we go about maintaining that? And number two, like, why are we trying to maintain it? Yeah. And number three, what audiences are we trying to reach?
That's a lot of questions all at once, Helen.
I'll go.
First of all, I'll just say that we have this conversation a lot because as the game grows, this conversation becomes more and more important, because obviously as the game grows, the media consumption grows with it. The larger media outlets, as we'll call them, start to cover it more, and the future for how that balance will play out in terms of keeping these grassroots media around and the bigger media outlets is still yet to be decided, and we're kind of figuring it out as we go. So this conversation is one that we have a lot, and I think one that needs to continue to be had even more as this game is growing more and more. What was the first question?
I guess, like, why do you think it's important?
I throw it to Ali now.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Why do you think it's important, Ali, that we keep grassroots media?
For the exact reason, because the fans will know more than the mainstream journalists, because as you said now, you went to GB News, they thought Serena Rugman was German. Like, it's getting to the point where there are so many mistakes on mainstream media, and then you'll be grassroots media will be like, no, if we go back to 2015 and look at this match at 6, like, and also you can't fake the passion that grassroots media has. You know, I write for something called Since 71, and we've done it where overnighting down to Dorchester to go cover a Yeovil game when Yeovil was still in existence, and that was, you know, one man and his dog, but people cared about the coverage that we were doing. And it's sad if we lose that passion and it becomes a bit too monotonous and a bit too, you know, copy and paste print, because you're going to lose the engagement, because fans respond well to fans.
Well, I'm also going to say that we are obviously grassroots, and we attend, Ali attends WSL games as media, I attend NWSL games as media. And I think it's surprising for people to learn that the majority of the time that I go to a Gotham FC game and cover that game, I am sometimes I've been the only person in that media room afterwards in the post-game press conference. Usually I'm one of 4, and all of us are doing it for free in our spare time. I don't think that it's as well known that really how the game and how these leagues are getting covered 90% of the time is by smaller media companies, grassroots media companies, because the bigger media will obviously come in and do big tournaments, and that's great because we need that exposure, right? Because obviously our reach isn't quite what the BBC is. We're getting there. It's not quite there. But it's a delicate balance, and I think it's really important to shine light on that aspect of it, because frankly, why they're important is because grassroots media companies are the ones that are actually covering the game most of the time.
One of my big concerns as well, And on the podcast, we obviously can't really do it today, but we do a segment called Around the World. There's a jingle that goes with it.
Sing it.
No, I can't do it.
Around the world, around the world.
Oh, that was really good.
I have a secret. It's not that secret now. My dream is to be a pop star. I just don't have the singing voice for it.
I
So
feel like
this
you've
is
got the
my
mic,
stage.
you've got the holding of the mic, you've got it down.
We'll host some karaoke at the end of this day.
100%. So we do Around the World, and we'll talk about the Mexican Women's League, and we'll talk about South American football, and we'll talk about the Italian League, which is really growing, and teams like Juventus are really coming through.
Irish League, Australian League.
Yeah, we'll cover it all, essentially, if there's been a big game around the world. That's clever, isn't it? Well, we did that. So we'll cover it all, and I think that's where I really worry about the women's game, because what we're starting to see is, I guess, you've got this area at the top which is being siphoned off into being important, for anyone listening, and putting that in inverted commas, but it's being seen as important now. So the WSL is important. It gets headline news. You'll go on the BBC Sport website and you'll see what the Chelsea-Manchester United score was for the women's game. But the big problem is that they are going to sort of skate off into the distance, and we're going to see these other leagues that are as important for the growth of the women's game starting to get left behind, both financially and commercially, and also in terms of merchandise sales, and that's a big thing for me. I think that merchandise is a huge way of growing the women's game. And so I think that by doing grassroots podcasts, people maybe come on to hear our analysis of Magdalena Eriksson playing for Sweden and Chelsea, but actually we are kind of putting that other bit of information out there about the Mexican League, which we have become a bit obsessed with, haven't we, the Mexican League?
We are obsessed with the Mexican League.
For a couple of years now, yeah. We
can't pronounce any of the teams because there's no coverage, so we just have to make it up. We're always like, Sassuolo in Italy.
That was Italy, yeah, Sassuolo.
Like Sassuolo, probably getting that wrong.
How long it took me to say Pachuca? It took me so long.
Yeah.
Sarah
You
was
too.
like, Pachuca. Repeat after me. Pachuca.
And I will say that just because we are obsessed with the Mexican League, we're talking about it right now. You know, part of talking about it and why it's so important, we'll obviously talk about the games, which is equally as important. And also, we will, for example, Allie and I chatted with a player who was sharing with us that the main thing she wanted to talk about was that she feels other players won't come to La Liga MX because they feel that it's unsafe in Mexico, and she wants to spread the word that, like, that's false, that's a racist assumption, and that, this is actually one of the greatest places to be in terms of growing the game. So it's shining a light on the game, and it's a shining light on the league in ways that, frankly, like you mentioned, the bigger media really isn't.
So I guess to kind of like close this section, what would you ask these 450 people sat in front of us? I love it being audio. Are they filming this as well? Are they filming it? Can you?
No,
it's fine.
Erase it. Find the tape later.
What would you ask the lovely audience in front of us to do to support grassroots media? And I guess that's my question.
Is that just for us to plug ourselves?
Well, no, we can talk about other podcasts as well.
No, I think it's so simple. But to support grassroots media, you just need to follow grassroots media. Following the game in outside of tournaments will kind of just allow for that. I think that as the conversation gets bigger in the larger media, it becomes more and more important, obviously, for everybody to follow the smaller media companies. So I think that really that's, unfortunately, the simple answer.
Also, I have to say, just because someone's got a journalism degree doesn't mean that they're more qualified than anybody else. Like, I got into sports writing at the great age of 27. I'd already done my degrees. I was always done. That doesn't mean that I know less than somebody, as you said, interned at the BBC at 18.
I'll also say this is a bigger topic, but anybody who's in, positions of power at larger media companies, it does seem that instead of going to hire somebody who's been doing this work for free for 5 years, they're going to pull their men's writer into the women's game, pull their men's commentary into the women's game. They're different games. They're amazing, both of them. Women's is a bit better. But it's people in positions of power doing stuff like that instead of pulling your men's writer over to women. Create that space for the women's game and pull people up who are doing it already, who have been following that game and have been putting out that coverage.
I think one thing that I would say, which I'm seeing anyway, so it's kind of, I'm just preaching to the converted, is that there is a real, I'm going to call it a sisterhood that forms in women's football. And I cannot tell you the amount of times that like the team at Her Football Hub have put me forward for something, or somebody suggested my name in something, and then I never do it in return because like, I don't know, I'm joking, I would do it in return, of course. If something came up that I didn't think that I was right for, putting that person's name forward, it's crucial. But then also I think we do start to see that you will be in the same media areas, or you'll be surrounding yourself with the people that are doing it for the professional organizations, and it's crucial that those people see the importance of these grassroots media outlets, whether it's written, podcast, visual. It's really important that they back that and support that. So I know it already happens, so as I say, I'm already preaching to the converted, but putting people in for things, or talking to those people. Give me contact, say at Arsenal, and saying, oh, this is the Arsenal contact. Oh, let Helen in to cover this, to speak to the players. It's really important. And that being from somebody that's working at the BBC, or somebody working within one of those professional arenas is really crucial. And I just hope we continue to see that.
Clubs are really great at that. Clubs and grassroots media organizations, I think, have a really great relationship because...
Depends on the club.
Yeah.
I don't want to shout out my team, but they are absolutely useless. So if anybody from West Ham's listening, please get your act together.
It is beautiful to see the synergy sometimes between a club and grassroots media, because the club knows who's there every day. The club knows who's there at the game every single day. And I guess for clubs, then it's really continuing to prioritize people who are there.
Yeah, let's form WhatsApp groups and put stuff out there. Like, we have one called Woso on Tour that I think a few people in this room are in. Yeah, Woso on Tour. And whenever we're going somewhere like Barcelona, we all met up in a bar after the game and just like soaked it all up. But like, it's open to everyone who's part of the community, no matter what background you're from or what experience you have, or even if you don't even do the media stuff and the grassroots stuff. It's just for fans that are really into the game to be involved in. So I think it's super crucial. So we are gonna wrap here. We always talk about the big topics at the WOSO show. What's great is we can obviously talk about things that necessarily wouldn't be talking about in other podcasts. We like to bring up the big topics. We like to make a bit of a joke and have a bit of a laugh. I'm going to give you guys the summary of the show and where you can find it.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary. I think how we like to structure this is we consider ourselves somebody that's really filling that void in the larger media for the majority of the time when the game's not being covered. And when we say game coverage, we love chatting about the game, we love chatting about tactics, but we also love chatting about topics like what we just talked about. I would say we're not really afraid to dive into anything, which is the benefit of being a podcast, frankly. So we've covered everything: trans rights, the classic sexism in the game, and everything in between. So follow us at The WOSO Show. Listen to us on Spotify. If you're listening to us right now on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, already.
And wherever you get your podcasts.
Wherever you get your podcasts, The Women's Soccer Show. And we are year-round. We cover WSL, NWSL, international, and as Helen said, around the world. So thank you all for having us.
Yes,
Thanks
thank
so
you
much, guys. Cheers.